So you think you go to IKEA for a simple bookcase, right? Or maybe just for the Swedish meatballs? But here's the thing. You're not just walking into a store. You are stepping into a meticulously engineered system, a multi-billion-dollar psychological experiment that's been designed from the ground up to shape exactly how you behave. It's time we take a look at the real IKEA blueprint.
I mean, we've all been there. You go in for one specific thing, and then, hours later, you stumble out into the sunlight with a cart full of stuff you had no idea you even needed. You probably got lost, you definitely got tired, and you know what? That's not an accident. That is the strategy.
And yeah, that strategy has a name. It's called the Gruen Effect. It's this design principle where an environment is just so overwhelming that you completely forget your original mission. IKEA's winding one-way path, it is the absolute masterclass in this. It's designed to turn your focused shopping trip into a kind of impulsive treasure hunt. And the scale of this whole operation, it's just mind-boggling. To furnish all those homes, IKEA uses about 1% of the entire world's commercial wood supply every single year. That's the kind of power we're talking about. But to really get how they got here, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. See, this global empire, it didn't start in some fancy high-rise boardroom. Nope. It started on a little farm in rural Sweden, born from the mind of a teenager during a world war. And it was really forged in the fires of an economic showdown. That teenager was Ingvar Kamprad. Back in 1943, he took a small cash gift from his dad. It was a reward for good grades, and he started a business. And the name, IKEA, that's an acronym. I and K are his initials, the E is for Elmateryd, his family farm, and the A is for Agunnaryd, his home village. You really can't get more personal than that. At first, he sold small stuff, matches, pens, things like that. But by 1948, he spotted a huge opportunity in furniture. The thing was, furniture was crazy expensive and hard to get. So he just flipped the whole script, offering it through his mail-order catalog. He even opened a showroom so people could actually see and touch the products, which was a huge deal back then. But his low prices, well, they made the old guard really, really angry. And this all exploded in 1955, when the Swedish furniture cartel basically declared war. They pressured all the suppliers to boycott IKEA, trying to cut him off completely. But Kamprad didn't back down. Instead, he went on the attack. He just moved his manufacturing over to Poland, where he found even cheaper costs, way outside the cartel's reach. This one move, this single decision, it defined IKEA's DNA. Innovate, slash costs, and never ever let your competitors tell you what to do. But being aggressive on costs wasn't going to be enough. IKEA needed a real breakthrough. An idea so radical, it wouldn't just save the company, but it would completely change the entire industry. And that idea, it came from a moment of pure, simple frustration. So the story goes that in 1956, an early IKEA employee, a guy named Gillis Lundgren, was trying to stuff a table into his car after a photo shoot, and it just wouldn't fit. He got so fed up, he just took the legs off. And right there, that was the light bulb moment. What if they sold all their furniture with the legs off? I mean, think about it. For decades, furniture companies were basically shipping air, all that wasted space inside and around a big, clunky assembled table. By putting everything flat in a box, IKEA could cram way more products onto every single truck, which slashed their transportation costs. And of course, they passed those savings on to you. But the real genius? It wasn't what was in the box. It was what happened in your brain. This is what we now call the IKEA effect. Behavioral economists have found that we put a way higher value on things that we help create. That little struggle you have with the Allen key, that moment of triumph when you finally get the last screw in, that's not just you providing free labor for IKEA. That is you building an actual emotional bond with that piece of furniture. You love it more because you built it. Okay, so with the flat pack changing logistics and the psychology of the product, IKEA turned its focus back to the store itself. They basically perfected the art of guiding you through their world, using a few surprisingly simple but powerful tools. The journey through an IKEA is like a carefully scripted play in 4 acts. Act 1, you walk in with a clear goal. But then Act 2, you're immediately forced onto the long natural path, that winding maze that curves just enough to keep you looking around. By Act 3, you've seen so much stuff your brain is exhausted. That's decision fatigue kicking in. And that's when they lead you to the finale, the warehouse, where you're primed to just start grabbing things you didn't even know you wanted. But Kamprad knew that a tired and overwhelmed customer is also a hungry customer.
He had this really simple philosophy. It's tough to do business with an empty stomach. So what did he do? He put a restaurant smack in the middle of the maze.
And listen, this is not just some little side hustle. The scale here is absolutely insane. In 2023, IKEA's food division brought in over $2 billion in revenue. That makes them, almost by accident, one of the biggest food retailers on the entire planet.
But the food does more than just fill you up. Psychologically, it works as a price anchor. See, when you buy a full meal for just, say, $5 or $6, your brain subconsciously resets its idea of what a good value is. So suddenly, that $200 sofa, it doesn't seem so expensive anymore. They might even lose a little money on the meatballs, just so you'll feel better about buying the Malm dresser.
But all of this, everything we've talked about, is built on a foundation that you can't see. Beneath those friendly blue and yellow storefronts lies a corporate structure so complex, so intentionally confusing that people have called it an invisible empire. And it was designed for control, for longevity, and, as some critics say, for a massive financial advantage.
So here's the secret. IKEA isn't really one company. It's more like a web. The IKEA brand itself, the whole concept, that's owned by a company in the Netherlands called IKEA Systems. But most of the actual stores you shop in, they're operated by a totally separate company, the Inca Group, which is just the biggest franchisee. This whole setup is designed to protect the brand and make sure the company's vision lasts for decades, not just a few years.
And this is where it gets really strange. The INGK Group is owned by a Dutch foundation. And for a while, this structure technically made it the wealthiest charitable foundation in the world, even bigger than the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, critics have argued for years that this was just a brilliant, maybe controversial way to avoid taxes and make it pretty much impossible for anyone to ever take over the company.
Of course, if you ask IKEA, their official mission is much simpler and way more focused on you, the customer. It's about offering well-designed, functional stuff at prices so low that almost anyone can afford them. And you have to admit, that idea, this kind of democratic approach to design, is a huge part of why they're so popular all over the world. But that global success hasn't come without some really serious criticism. Over the years, IKEA has been accused of everything from labor issues that landed it in a sweatshop hall of shame to claims of spying on its own employees in France. Environmental groups have called them out on their wood sourcing, and they created a huge global firestorm when they airbrushed women completely out of their Saudi Arabian catalog. It's a complicated legacy, to say the least. So when you really boil it all down, the true IKEA revolution wasn't the box or the Allen key. It was a fundamental change in how we think about the things in our homes. Before IKEA, you bought a dining table to last a lifetime, maybe even pass it down to your kids. IKEA turned furniture into fashion, something affordable, stylish, and ultimately disposable. It became a lifestyle accessory you could just change out with the seasons. They somehow managed to turn the chore of building a home into a game where, yeah, the instructions are a little confusing, but the prize is this huge sense of accomplishment and a really stylish living room. It's a game where by the time you've put it all together, you feel like you've already won. So I guess the only question left is, what's in your box?